Welcome to the CCS Conference Call After Dark podcast presented by the Collegiate Conference Series. I'm back with a new host this season. Somber will carry on the legacy of Jonas for the Conference Call podcast, and it's good to be back.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I got some big shoes to fill with Jonas no longer being here on the podcast, but I'm excited for this season going forward. We've had one heck of a non-conference to kick things off with, so I'm excited to kind of get down into the nitty-gritty of things and look towards conference play.
Absolutely, and we had a pretty crazy week one. We'll get into that here in a minute, but it's been quite the start to the season nonetheless. I know Akron and Missouri are underway right now. We're waiting on that result to come in. As for those of you just now joining us, Discord went down about 45 minutes ago, so I think that caused a little bit of a delay in the Akron game. We're just kind of sitting here waiting on that result to come in, but what a start to the season it's been.
Yeah, I mean, we've had, if I had to venture to say, a record amount of game fives. We've had at least one reverse sweep and mixed in there as well. It's been a really competitive non-conference, and it's made me very excited for the upcoming season, especially seeing some of these teams where it's, we've had a couple matchups where teams are projected to be kind of the 1-2 spot in their respective conference, and we're seeing how they kind of match up with some top dogs of other, not your major, your SEC and Big Ten and stuff like that, but we're seeing these smaller conferences like out in the American and the CUSA, where it's these teams where they can make a crack into national play once more, and we get to see kind of where they would end up when it comes down to a championship bracket. And I really like what I see coming out from week one, and as the season goes on, these teams are just going to get better and better. But it was nice to see a lot of these kind of litmus test games to kick things off.
Absolutely agree. And I think, for me, looking back at the last week of play, I mean, it was exciting. I know I've been sick and I didn't get to cast as much as I would have liked to, but I still got to do a little bit last night and over the last couple of nights. But I got to watch a lot, which is also a lot of fun, just to sit back and watch as a producer and watch all these game fives and watch all these potential upsets or teams I wasn't really high on and then play very well. Like, for example, Nebraska. I was fairly high on UConn, but I know they're kind of undergoing some roster stuff, and it's a new roster this year, and they might not be as good as they used to be alongside Noah and Youngcat, but that team still should be very competitive in the Big East, and Nebraska made that series look easy. They looked really good going into the Big Ten play, Somber.
Yeah, again, Nebraska, they kick off with Penn State for week one of conference play, and it was going to be a tough matchup going into it, but I think that the gap has narrowed a little bit, especially with the emergence of Creed in that series against UConn and how they just absolutely lit up the scoreboard. I think that Nebraska is going to be right back towards the top, and we're going to be seeing a lot more of them, and they're going to be a name, kind of a household name for CCS once more. We talk about their kind of historic run and how much kind of love they garnered from the CCS viewer base, because they were such a scrappy team that no one really expected Nebraska to go out there and make waves, and they did. And I think that we have something brewing in similar fashion here for season 7 in Nebraska.
Yeah, the Nebraska story is special. I mean, being alongside Jonas for that call was something else that night. Again, when they reverse swept Purdue in the Big Ten tournament for the first time in season 3, and that made national news. It made ABC Channel 8 news in Omaha, Nebraska the next night, which was kind of outstanding. And there was an article online. That was probably our moment of blowing up. Like holy, it finally got somewhere in esports in Nebraska. That's probably the biggest thing that's happened. There's been a couple of big things on social media that's happened with CCS. I mean, the University of Utah has posted about us before, back in season 2, and they knocked off number 1 Kansas. I think that was before you were here, Somber, so I'm not sure if you saw that. There's been a couple of schools that have flipped their tower for wins in CCS, most recently Northern Illinois when they knocked off number 1 Florida in the tournament last season. There's just been all sorts of crazy things that have happened, and it's just, it shocks me every time.
Yeah, it's nice to see esports kind of get legitimized, and especially a game like Rocket League. I feel like Rocket League is one of those games where you can kind of plunk someone down in front of them and just tell them, hey, it's soccer with cars, and you can go faster using boost, but it's a limited resource that you got to fight for, and people just kind of make things click as it goes along. I always tell people, like, I've casted for multiple years now. I never really got like my parents involved with it at all. I went and did my first LAN gig, and they were like, hey, we want to see what that's like, and send us the Twitch link. I sent it to them, and they were like, when I came back from LAN, they were like, yeah, we're fully invested with all of it. We didn't know anything about anything going into it. We didn't even know what Rocket League was, other than it's a game that you talk about all the time. And we were fully invested for the entire weekend for LAN. And now they catch games every once in a while. They'll ask me what's going on with Rocket League, and I'll throw up, if there's a regional going on and we're not watching anything that weekend, I'll throw it up and I'll spend some time with my family. And it's a very easily accessible esport. So seeing the program start to get involved with like that, and they celebrate these big wins for these teams, it's really nice to see. And I'm hoping that we get a lot more moments like that this season, because with how a lot of these teams have been performing and a lot of the talent that we're getting back that we missed so dearly during the summer, this is going to be a really big season here for CCS.
It really is, and we'll get into the changes and how big this league has gotten here in a little bit later on tonight. But it's been quite the last couple of years for CCS. It's going on year 3, and the growth never fails to amaze me. We've had tons of different schools. I think there's been like 220 something unique schools that have played in this league at one point in time, maybe 230 now. I'd have to go back and count that on my own time, but nonetheless, it's still crazy, and there's still more to come.
Absolute insanity. And I think if non-conference is anything to say about where we're at with the league and where we're at for the season, we're in store for some great games. I know that the SEC is definitely going to be one to look out for, especially with the reemergence of UTK. I heard from the Twitterverse that UTK game on broadcast was their first game that they played together. I think they had one scrim before that. So as UTK starts to get more scrims, more reps under their belt, they're going to be another top dog out in the SEC. We got Florida making the run back. We got Mizzou back in the mix. SEC is going to be another powerhouse conference once more in CCS, and it's going to be just great. And I saw Akron earlier when we put out the power rankings. Akron posted the Fantastic Four meme. They're looking for a 4-peat, the first ever, after doing the first ever 3-peat last season.
First ever 2-peat too.
It's going to be phenomenal. It's going to be a phenomenal season.
When somebody talked about consistency in CCS, the first thing that comes to mind is Colorado. But then Akron came to the league, and Akron showed a new level of consistency, because over the first year of CCS, Colorado never failed to make a Final Four. They went 3 straight Final Fours, won a national title, and then Akron joined and went 3 in a row on the national titles, and has never lost a tournament game in CCS history. Over the last year, they've had a couple scares, but they have never lost, which is still crazy to me to even think about. Because back in season 4, which is their first season this fall, they were down 0-3 against East Tennessee State on the D stream. And that stream broke too that night, so it was off camera, so we couldn't watch. We were just sitting there watching Youngfun's Discord while casting like a Game 5 or whatever the heck series Stronus and I were doing that night. Just watching the Akron get like, what the heck's going on? Why is Akron down 0-3 right now? And they came back and won it. And then they knocked off Missouri in 6 and beat Michigan State in the final. But they just never fail to lose in the tournament when it matters most.
Yeah, and I credit that to Akron as a program, right? They have built a winning culture back with Patty, Bullseye, and Jan on the main squad back in the old days, and how dominant they were out in a very tough East when there was East and West for CRL. And then now Jan with Milio and Oxy on Akron Gold. They've just been, I think, not just consistent in CCS, but consistent in all of collegiate. They're consistent in all of the 4-letter leagues that are out there. They're consistent in CRL. They're just a beacon of what a team should be and what other programs should strive to have their B team of all things be, which is still crazy to think that Akron Gold is a B squad and that they should be a starting roster on 99% of teams out there. But Akron Gold is going to look dominant as ever. But I think that Missouri is going to be right back up there with them. I know that Mizzou was kind of when they made their when they had their inaugural season, they were one of the teams of, oh well, they've had so much success nationally and they were so much more successful than Akron Gold in CRL that they're going to definitely beat them, right? And Akron still came out victorious on the other side, and Mizzou has a chance to have that narrative spark up once more. But during the summer, Bubs was in the program, and then he was out of the program, and he was retiring, and now he's back in. So we'll see how Mizzou shapes up for the season. I think that this is still kind of Akron's league until someone can really show that they can step to them.
Yeah, Akron's had a couple stumbles, though, in the non-conference. They've always kind of lost when we'll see. Once this Mizzou-Akron result does come in, I'm still waiting on it. I don't know what's happening, but that result still has not been posted. But I assume they might still be going. But again, Akron is super consistent. If those 3 players were to enter the portal anytime, they would all be immediately picked up and probably playing on the starting roster. I'd say like 95% of schools across the nation. I mean, there's 368 Division I schools across the country. I mean, if they were to go to anywhere else, maybe 365 of those schools, they'd be starters anywhere else in the country.
Yeah, and again, I think it says a lot about Akron, right? They've been fine not being, the top dogs and being behind Patty, Bullseye, and 5-Up, and they're just like, yeah, we're still going to go out, we're still going to compete, and we're still going to be one of the best teams in the nation. We don't need to have that oh, we're the Akron Zips. We're okay being Akron Gold, and we're okay still going out and kicking butt in every league that we play in. It doesn't matter the banner that we're underneath. We're going to just be a solid squad. And I think that's great for the Akron program. I think that's great for collegiate esports. Having depth in your program is obviously amazing because it causes internal competition. It makes everyone strive to be better. I was tuned into Epic and TJ right before we went live and popped in, but apparently there's some stuff going on with Ball State, and there's whispers of potential roster shifts and move arounds with their main squad, and that's what you get when we have depth. Ball State Black, again, another team where you bring in Phoebes and you get deeper as a program, you get deeper as having multiple rosters and having things shift around, and it's really nice to see kind of top to bottom success for programs, and Akron really holding things down here with their B squad and still being a top team nationally.
I mean, they've got Yags and Phoebes, and even for Akron as well, having this B team technically is a starting roster anywhere else in the country. But I mean, you lose a player to graduation, it's next man up. You don't have to necessarily go out of your way to bring another top player because you've already got the depth in your program. So it's next man up at that point for Akron or Ball State, or whenever those seniors graduate. But nonetheless, those programs are still going to keep recruiting top talent across the nation, and I'm sure they're going to have depth for years to come, hopefully, as esports continues to grow at the collegiate level. But moving along to week one, though, Somber, I mean, what a week it was. We saw a lot of close games, a lot of rivalry games across the nation, and those are a lot of fun to keep tabs on. And most notably, I mean, Clemson knocking off South Carolina. What a win that was for the Tigers.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a result where being kind of heavily involved in the Carolina landscape for Collegiate Rocket League, it does not surprise me. I think that their roster has the talent behind it. They just have always not been able to find that last little bit to push them over the edge in these big time wins. They always seem to find a way to be competitive enough with rosters like South Carolina and Charlotte, at least here in the Carolinas. But I think that this is when we finally see them make that push. I know Canovo has talked highly about Mossau and Beans, and they were kind of still ramping things up over for Clemson. But I think that this is where we find Clemson to be a force once more in the ACC. But an impressive win against South Carolina puts a lot of hope into that team going forward for their conference play, and kind of shoots their stock through the roof. I know USC also now without Cats, but they still got SJT and AUG, and that's going to be a dangerous team with whoever they put at third. So being able to grab that win is absolutely massive for Clemson to wrap out non-conference.
It absolutely is, and something that I've always talked a lot about is tournament success for these teams that are being really good on the regular season, but that all doesn't matter at the end. If you can't win when it matters most, everything you get in the regular season means nothing, because it just there's no postseason success to harp on. If your roster, sure, you're playing an ACC that honestly isn't as strong as a lot of the rest of the conferences across the country, but at the Power 4 level, I mean, it's arguably the worst one in CCS right now, in my opinion. But it's still a good league. There's a lot of teams in it, a lot of competitive rosters. But Clemson just hasn't had the success I wish we could see them have. And I think this season might be their best shot yet to make a run.
Yeah, I think, like you said, I think Cal. I liked what I saw out of them in the Sideline Sports Invitational. They didn't impress me too much with their offense. Their defense looked really great at times. I think that Clemson, with the way that they liked to play throughout spring of last year and during the summer, and then now into fall, having a little bit more cohesion, I think that they're going to be a very offensive heavy team, and I think that's what you need to have for Clemson is find an offensive identity, be a offensive juggernaut, and be able to take that international play. Because I think that was a big thing lacking from them. Was the consistency in their offense from the previous seasons is just you see miscommunications all the time. You see whiffed open nets. You see whiffed shots. If they're able to lock that down, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. But yeah, I agree with your take. I think out of the Power Four conferences, the ACC definitely is the thinnest. And Cal, Florida State, if they've made any roster moves, NC State coming back in. North Carolina had a somewhat impressive summer.
Took Akron to 6.
But again, like they didn't all those teams don't impress me as much as the potential of Clemson. Clemson has such a high ceiling, but can they have it go recognized and come to fruition? So we'll get to see. And again, that's going to be another interesting storyline. Them and Nebraska are two teams where they have all the potential in the world to do some damage in their respective conferences, and it's going to be a storyline to definitely keep tabs on throughout the season.
I mean, you look at the ACC for me, and you look at Clemson. They've had 3 tournament appearances in CCS, stemming from season 3. They've missed a tournament in the summer, and now they're looking to go back for a 4th time in the last 5 seasons. But they've dropped to Houston, Oregon, and FIU, with all respectable programs. But they have to find a way to get over the hump. And now North Carolina. I mean, they're coming off a really good summer season. They made it around 32. They took Akron to Game 6. They led that series after 3. They should have gone to Game 7, but all things fell apart in Game 6. Akron scored a 0-second goal to send it to overtime, and they ended up losing. But, Virginia Tech, they're back for this fall. They had a really good spring. They won the ACC. Pitt's lost Duke to the portal. California's lost 2 players that have graduated, so who knows what to expect there. But I think you look at top of the ACC, it could be Clemson. It could be Virginia Tech. It could be this new Syracuse roster. Who knows?
Yeah, I think that Syracuse, it's not their main roster. It's not going to be baby Russell and Tiz. Thank you. I was just so used to seeing Gav on the team, and then now Gav being on the B team. I'm like, wait, who's the third again? But yeah, we do see Gavilan. I think Gavilan's a great player, but I'm not too familiar with the other 2 that they have playing. Syracuse can do some damage just based off of having Gavilan on the roster alone. They had a very impressive showing, stepping in for Tiz and winning some big games and having some big time performances during the summer. But we'll have to see. I think again, Virginia Tech, you had 2 really tough non-conference games where you went 0-6 and you got perfect swept by Mizzou.
It's depth and look at who they play.
I don't think that's going to be really indicative of what their season's going to look like. Again, you're being treated like a top team by given top matchups in the non-conference to really test you to see where you're at. But yeah, I think that this is kind of a 3-team race between if North Carolina can reproduce what they did during the summer and build on that, if Clemson can play to their potential, and if Virginia Tech is still just as good as they have been.
I mean, Virginia Tech looks really good against Missouri and Ball State. Although they didn't score against Missouri, they did still look very good. Their defense looked fine to me.
Yeah, tight games.
I mean, their offense against Ball State was, crazy good too. I mean, again, you were casting that, I think, right, with Taquito, I believe it was.
Yeah, they were very.
Had that end of possession kickoff goal that should have gone in to send us to Game 5 and Game 4. I mean, had that goal gone in, who knows what would have happened in Game 5. I mean, that's a really good team at the end of the day. I think they're going to have a really good season again. I'm excited to see how things go for them this fall, but I think that's a bound team to make the tournament this fall.
Yeah, I think so as well. Again, the perfect sweep against Mizzou, I feel like just using that as the way to describe how that series went is not fair to Virginia Tech because they were tight games. It's not like they got blown out of the water every game and it was just utter domination. Either they were 1 or 2 goal games and it's just you let in a couple, and it's a Mizzou of all teams. It's a top 4 team in the nation here for CCS. They took the summer off. They're coming back with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder because I think that the kind of public rhetoric has been, how good is Mizzou going to be? I know that going into spring last year, it was, can Crims step up for Mizzou? How far can Frostbite and Bubs carry that roster? And that there was going to be a lot of doubt going into their third for Crims. And now the rhetoric has Crims had enough reps over the summer to get them back to a top team in the nation? Is Bubs all the way back in? Are they putting the hours in? Are they putting that grind in like they once were? I think they're going to be playing with a chip on their shoulder. I think that Mizzou is going to be fully invested. So as we see Mizzou kind of climb up the rankings and climb up the ladder and look like one of the best teams here in CCS, I think that sweep is going to look less and less indicative of how Virginia Tech is, and more kind of just, oh, they ended up playing in their first game of the season against one of the best teams in CCS.
I agree. I mean, I think Missouri's going to have a really good season. Probably, honestly, a Final Four, if not a national final appearance. But, I mean, back in the fall when we brought in Akron, I mean, everyone was like, okay, is this Colorado's limit? Will they be able to, surmount the peak of Akron? They go to the Final Four and contest with Akron and go to a 6-game overtime series and lose. And then Akron became champions. And then we brought in, Michigan State and Missouri. And we were like, okay, has Akron's limits now been pushed? Can we push our limits with these two teams? Akron beat both of them. Then we brought in the San Diego State new roster. They got swept by Akron. No one has been able to beat them. Drexel is one of Akron's losses in the non-conference. They've gotten them twice in the non-conference somber. But again, Akron's gotten revenge both times in the tournament. And then Akron also suffered a loss to Florida and Syracuse last season. The three only losses all in the regular season. No one has ever beaten them ever in the tournament.
Yeah, I think that Akron is just one of those teams, like you said, kind of talking about that ETSU series is they know how to win when they need to. And I think that there is top end talent once more for us to see Akron get challenged. I think that Ball State roster is going to impress a lot of people coming out of the MAC. I think that they might be able to be a team that, I know even with Ball State Black having Jesse on the roster, they made that conference championship game against Akron Gold a very tight series in the spring. So now adding a player like Phoebes, I think that is going to get them that much closer to Akron Gold. I think that they're going to be maybe a upset in both the regular season and possibly even the conference championship, and not give Akron Gold that automatic bid. Although both teams, I think, will be pretty solidly in unless there's a massive collapse from Ball State out of the MAC. I think Missouri is going to be right back up there. Like you said, I think that they're also going to have a really great season. I think that Florida, if they're able to make things work with no K-Frost on the roster and have a big turnaround, San Diego State was really impressive. The only teams that I kind of see being contenders, but not maybe the final appearances, are teams like Charlotte and Drexel. I know that people have been really high on them from last fall and last spring. I think that just the quality of the other teams that are potential top fours, there's a noticeable difference in potential between the other top four candidates and teams like Charlotte and Drexel this year, unlike last year where it was kind of Drexel was in that top four conversation. I think that they've kind of fallen out of that space as of now. But yeah, again, Akron's looking for the 4-peat. It's going to be tough for them because Missouri is going to be coming back. They're going to play with a chip on their shoulder. Ball State can make something happen in the conference, and Akron has to go run the hell bracket going to a national championship once more. But we'll all see how this season unfolds. I think that's going to be really fun, especially out in the MAC. You said last night we got full action. We got everyone in the MAC here in the conference. I think that's going to be a lot of fun and a lot of chirping, especially.
Yeah, first time in CCS history it's ever happened as well. First full entire conference to sign up for league play, which is, pretty cool to think about what we've kind of tried to build over the last couple of years here at CCS and what we're still trying to work on building. And we've gotten close a couple times, but we've never been able to fully do it. And we just did it this fall. I think we're going to do it multiple times in the spring, I hope. But, again, we've been 15 out of 16 in the Big 12. We've been 17 out of 18 in the ACC. We've been 17 out of 18 in the Big 10. I mean, we've been very close a couple times. A couple smaller conferences, 1 or 2 away from a full one. And, hopefully this spring we can keep building. And my goal, again, is 200 schools. I want to get there this spring. I really think we can. It's possible. It's got to, put the work in and, bring these programs in. But moving along to the Sideline Sports Invitational, and what a weekend it was.
Yeah, I mean, especially with Nebraska not playing in the the first go at things and given Cal that automatic go through, but they bounced back and they looked really, really good against UConn. That Louisiana Tech Florida Atlantic series was an absolute banger. NIU Cal that we were on was another absolute banger. It was a nice night nice 2 nights rather of Rocket League, and GCU able to dethrone Louisiana Tech, coming out in first place. GCU is going to be a team that might be able to make a little bit of a sleeper run here for CCS.
I think so as well. I mean, Grand Canyon's a team like Clemson. There's no tournament success. And that's something that we've always kind of looked forward to Grand Canyon. There's been, a couple, round of 64 victories. They never really gotten beyond the round of 32. I think they had one Sweet 16 back in the fall, but again, these last couple seasons have been rough. But, Hope, that's a team that can go a long way, Somber. They really have a talented roster, and I think, this fall might be a chance to make a run. They are now in the Mountain West. They have to deal with San Diego State in league play, and they're going to play them again in the conference tournament, I'd imagine, unless they have a stumble. But again, they're going to get a look at SDSU early, which is good going into their CCS championships because again in the WAC their top opponent was UT Arlington, so that's a big step up going from UTA into San Diego State this fall.
Yeah, and I mean even teams like Air Force is always competitive. San Jose State can have some big upset games here and there. They're coming into a very tough Mountain West, and I think that while they are kind of on paper the number 2 team for the Mountain West, I think that there's a pretty big gap between them and San Diego State. But I am going to be interested to see through conference play and through the conference championship bracket, if it does come down to it, kind of how big that gap is. Because if it looks negligible and GCU look like they're on par with the Aztecs, they could make some really, really big moves in national play once more when it comes to the championship bracket. But I think that their roster moves have been slight upgrades. I really like what I'm seeing out of Nightmare Rally, especially early season through non-conference. But we'll have to see if that's enough to contend with a team like San Diego State.
Yeah, again, I think SDSU, although despite the loss to Charlotte the other night, again, I still think they're top 5, top 6 team in the country. I wouldn't really put that loss like it's end all be all, but it certainly does hurt if you are San Diego State there. But let's take a look at the rankings, because we did release them on Twitter like an hour ago. And what a way to kick off the season, Somber. Top 25 here for CCS Season 7, our first poll of the season.
Man, I have a feeling that some people are going to take issue with this. We already have B-Boys saying that they're going to riot, but yeah, I will say, seeing Wichita State at number 2, I'm not privy to the conversation that go on behind closed doors about what led that to be the number 2 pick here. Looking at their non-conference, nothing really jumps off the page for me. I guess the win over Illinois is very impressive, but yeah, I think everything else, at least to me, is pretty business as usual. The returning champs at number 1, Mizzou, again, another top roster at 3, Ball State having a big time non-conference week 1, and especially with the roster additions, having them at 4, Florida at 5. Yeah, they kind of had their not fall off, but had a little bit of a decline and hit a stumble against NIU, but they're still a top team. SDSU, Charlotte, Maryland, Drexel, Penn State, all top 10 teams. Wichita State, though, what kind of is going on with Wichita State getting a number 2 bid?
So I had them at 8 on my list. Knight is their sub. Knight didn't play last week, and I had them at 8 because I don't think Knight's going to play all that much. He might just be used as a buffer to help this team get ranked higher, is my kind of thought right now. But if he starts playing and they play, Boone Knight Mace, that's, top team in CCS right now, and if that's their roster they choose to go with, then sure, they might be, top 2, 3, 4 area later on in the semester. But I had him at 8 because I don't think Knight's going to play that much. And if it's, Boone Mace Solus, they could be inbound for an upset from Charlotte or an early round tournament exit.
Yeah, I could definitely see Wichita State, because I saw Knight on the roster too, but I assumed that it was going to be a scenario of you kind of keep the ace in the hole for when you get to national conference or national championship play, or even in your conference championships, where you kind of then you get Knight involved in with the league, and it's just hey, we come in, play one game a week, and it's just a little short bracket run that you guys make to go and make a bid against Akron Gold. But yeah, I'll be very interested to see if Knight is more heavily involved than at least I assumed, because I know in the past we've seen, some of the top end players. I believe that there was one season where TNT and Flitz were listed as subs for Kennesaw, but we never but we've never seen them play in CCS before.
TNT has played a couple times.
So, okay. Then yeah, we'll see how involved Knight is. I think that if Knight is going to be more active, and if Boone is kind of vouching for that, and has kind of put out into the ether that Knight is going to be more heavily involved, Wichita State at 2 does make a lot of sense. I still though would have, just because of results sake, I personally would have put Mizzou over Wichita State, but I think that number 2 is a good spot for them. I also want to point out South Carolina, that makes that Clemson win against them look that much more impressive. Number 12, and Clemson coming in with a top 25 ranking to start off the season. Tennessee coming back in ranked. You love to see it. Syracuse, I like the pick of having them back in the top 25. I know that there's still some question marks around that being their B team, but I think having Gavilan on that team still makes them a threat. But yeah, again, a lot of kind of return familiar faces, and everything kind of shaking out to be a nice indicator of where we're heading into for week 1 of conference play.
And I believe this is the first time in CCS history the defending national champions have opened up the semester at 1. I believe. I'm fairly certain that this is the first time it's happened.
Interesting.
Because
it took a three-peat.
Because when we brought in Akron, they were automatically number 1 before they won season 4, which was Colorado opened at 3, I believe. It was either 2 or 3, I don't remember. But then season 5 came around, and Akron opened at number 3, I think, behind Michigan State and Missouri. And then, last season they opened at 2 or 3 behind Florida and I believe Florida and Syracuse, I think, were also ahead of Akron. And so Akron's never opened at 1 after winning a title.
Yeah, all it took was a three-peat to get them that number 1 spot. I think that, again, until a team shows, like, I think if Mizzou goes undefeated through the SEC, with how stacked that is starting to shape up to be, I think that would be the only way that I would put a team over Akron Gold, is having Mizzou go undefeated, or if Ball State kind of gets it done in the MAC and is able to take down Akron Gold both in regular season play and in a conference championship. Those are really the only 2 teams I would venture to put over Akron Gold, because again, they've been as consistent as you can hope a team to be, and also as dominant as you can hope a team to be for CCS. And it's going to be very tough, at least in my estimation, for reasons to put a team above Akron Gold.
Yeah, I mean, there's been good rosters that have come through CCS, but I think that, the defending champion should probably open at 1. Although, you can argue, okay, Akron came in, they're better than Colorado. There's no, hiding that fact. That I think, Colorado not opening at 1 is probably, that was fine. I think Akron not opening at 1, though, the last 2 seasons is a little bit crazy. I think you could argue, okay, sure, Michigan State and Missouri, those rosters are good, but Akron, proved them wrong. They beat both of them. They did eventually get to 1. They were the number 1 overall seed in that tournament, and they did win it. But again, they didn't open the season at 1. This is the first one they've ever opened at 1. But they've always struggled in the non-conference. They've lost more non-con games than they've won summer, which is kind of a crazy stat to think about. But they have lost more than they've won in the first week of the season. But they always find a way to get revenge, and they always find a way to win when it matters most in the end of the season.
Yeah, and again, at the end of the day, it's if you're winning a title or not. You could get absolutely blown out by Joe Schmo University in week 1 of non-conference, but if you win your conference and you win the national championship, that's all that matters at the end of the day. So again, Akron Gold, I understand the reasonings behind the past few seasons not having the defending champ open up at 1, because there has been a lot of great talent addition. But I think that now things have started to settle down coming into the fall here with rosters and talent, and kind of seeing some return faces who took the summer off, but they're back again now, but still recognizing that, with that spring result, having Missouri finish top 4 and Akron Gold still playing through the summer and still winning a championship, opening up number 1. I think that we're going to see a lot of shakeup as well, kind of in the 18 to 25 spot, and possibly even see GCU jump throughout week 1 of conference play. That's usually what you see here for CCS, is outside the top 15 there's a bunch of shakeup, and we see usually 24 25 drop out, or 25 shoots up a bunch of spots. But I'm really looking forward to having the power rankings back for the fall and being able to see all the shakeup and have all of the Twitter discourse with everyone who's upset about their rankings.
That's just expected. I'm just gonna be people that are upset with it. I'm waiting on one person in my mind to crash out. I'm just waiting for it to happen. I know they're going to. I'm waiting for them to come to general and crash out. I already know it's going to happen. I'm just waiting on it to happen. But I will not name names for those interested. I'm not going to name names, but I'll tell you somber off air. But I'm not going to say who it is. But I know there is somebody that's going to crash out. But anyway, moving along, the changes for this season. I mean, again, we've always had 8 teams make the respective conference tournaments, but now this season, that's different. We've moved to the athletic conference tournament formats for this year. So 15 out of the 18 teams in the Big Ten will qualify for the Big Ten tournament. It's all 16 teams across the SEC and the Big 12 will play in their conference tournaments. And it's all still single elimination, but we've moved on to the real athletics brackets, which is going to be a lot more fun to follow, and it gives us an opportunity for a Cinderella moment in the conference tournaments, where a team could be ranked 13 through 16 and play for a spot in the championships in the CCS tournament if they can find a way to win in the big conference tournament, which is really cool to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love the format change. It is going to take some getting used to, going from just our regular smaller conferences. You get the first round bye if you're a top seed, and then everything is just a single elim after that. I'm very much looking forward to adding some interest and intrigue into the kind of postseason play here before we get to our regular CCS championship bracket of single elimination through the round of 64 all the way through. It's going to be very exciting to watch. I think that we're going to see, again, this is probably some of the most competitive rosters that we've seen top to bottom for a lot of these conferences. Outside of we kind of touched on it with the ACC, that is kind of a 3-team race for number 1. But like you said, this is a format that is just waiting for a Cinderella run out of one team. We can see someone from the SEC just absolutely ball out and cause a massive upset and sneak away an automatic bid into the championship. And I'm very excited for the playoffs to come. The regular season is going to be great to just keep tabs on where teams are and kind of what stock is going to pay off for teams that I think are going to be good versus teams that I think that maybe will be a little lackluster compared to the summer. But I think that when it comes down to the postseason, that is where it is going to be can't miss Rocket League every single round.
Yeah, I wish I had a graphic to show some of these changes. Well, I'll make one for next week, and we can talk about it more next week. But for me, I'm looking forward to the American tournament and the Sun Belt tournament. Those are gauntlet brackets, and those are going to be a lot of fun to watch. I'm excited to see how that plays out because in those brackets, you start the first and second place teams start in the semifinals. The third and fourth place teams will start in the quarterfinal. The fifth and sixth place teams start in the third round. The seventh and eighth teams start in the second round. And the ninth and 10th through 11 and 12th start in the first round. So, again, your regular season matters more because you get automatically moved on to a higher spot in the conference tournament. And the same goes to the Sun Belt. I'll have a graphic for next week to show you guys what that looks like. And then, in the bigger tournaments like the Power Four, top 4 get a double bye into the quarterfinal. And the 5th through 8th get a single bye. So again, your regular season's important. You're playing for byes in the conference tournament as well now, which gets you around closer to the CCS championships.
Yeah, I think that in past seasons, it's been kind of the number 1, number 2 team being locked up pretty early, and then everyone else is just kind of as long as we make playoffs and we'll play eventually, whether we have a bye or not and a top seed or not. I think that this makes your seeding really important. try to win out series, and if you go down early, you want to try to win it out as quickly as possible, or at least make it go the distance and win out. You don't want to have these 0-3s and have your game diff slip, and that costs you an extra spot, which puts you into a different bracket. Like every game is going to matter, and I think that that's what league play needs to be, where every game for these players, for these teams, matters, and it's going to make for better competition. It's going to make for better brackets for playoffs. It's going to lead to more competition for the national championships. I think that this is all around just a phenomenal change, and it's going to make it where paying attention to every single seed and every single conference is just as important if you want to keep tabs on where teams are at. Because it used to just be you could take the 1 or 2 seed out of any conference and say, yeah, these teams are going to be ones that make it through because they're going to have that automatic bye in a smaller conference, and then they have to just beat a team of GC2s in their grand finals match because they didn't have to play whatever. But like now, it's every team is going to be mega competitive. Every team, their seed matters. If you slip up once, or if you go on in one of the gauntlet style brackets, you go on an insane run and you beat these teams that are the higher seeds, and you may not make it to the finals, but you at least go 2-0 or 2-1, and you knock out some big name teams. That's going to build up your resume for a reason as why you should be considered to be selected for the national championship. So again, I think having every seed matter every week, every game, every series matter is just a phenomenal change heading into season 7.
And those are the changes for this year. There's one more change, one final change coming to next year's CCS, and I'm super thrilled to reveal it later on this year, but control is about to be all in the hands of the players for their non-conference schedules, and what's to come next year, I'll kind of get into more of that in the spring. But Somber, result just came into me in DMs. I have the DM, I have the result, I know the final score in Akron, Missouri. Right. But before I get into that, I've said earlier, Akron has lost more non-conference games than they've won in CCS. They've always struggled. Well, I've got news for you tonight. Akron has swept Missouri.
Wow. A sweep. Okay.
That Jonathan just texted me and he said we swept. So that's a big time win for big time players. And we've always said Akron always finds a way to win. Although they've struggled, they got it done tonight. That honestly, as long as Akron goes the rest of the way in the MAC unbeaten, that should be the number 1 team in the country for the rest of the season.
Yeah, again, I think that now taking the sweep, I think that there could be cases made that if Mizzou had a phenomenal showing in the SEC and they were at least able to grab a game or two off of Akron, you can make arguments. But with a sweep coming out, I think that the only thing that you can have to hold a candle to an argument for Akron not being number 1 would be copium of just, oh, well, it's non-conference. They're still getting warmed up, and all these buzzwords that we use for a team that we think should be rated higher and should be, given a higher ranking. But I agree. I think unless Ball State Black can do something in the regular season or when it comes down to conference play and we have our final rankings before the national championship, I think that Akron has kind of cemented themselves as the number 1 team here in the power rankings for the season, and especially with them taking a sweep over Penn State as well. I know Penn State was anticipated to have Nitri on the roster. They do have a have a new roster around Nitrous. That's still a very good Penn State team. So sweeping them and Mizzou, really impressive way to start off the season here for Akron Gold.
Well, the Penn State one was a forfeit. Actually, I'm sure you remember what happened. Nitrous had, I don't want to get into it, but you know what happened. And that was a forfeit. But still nonetheless.
Brain fart.
Right. But nonetheless, it's still a big time win for Akron and beating Missouri 3-0, which was not expected. I thought Akron would win, but I thought it'd be close. But they did sweep them, which is kind of stunning. But moving along, key games for me. There's a couple of them on my list, on my short list here. But Arizona State plays Colorado. I mean, that's a big time game in the Big 12. Colorado was undefeated 2 seasons ago, and Arizona State got their first win over Colorado and ended that unbeaten season. That's a big time game to look out for in the Big 12, alongside Clemson, Virginia Tech. That's a big time game to watch in the ACC. I think that game's on Thursday night. It's already scheduled. Louisville plays Clemson. South Carolina A&M are kicking off here in 13 minutes. That's a big time game. Texas plays Tennessee Wednesday night. Illinois plays Maryland later on in the week. Penn State, Nebraska. We harped on that last night at the Sidelines event. Grand Canyon plays Wazoo. You talked a lot about Air Force and San Jose State. They play this week. Louisiana plays JMU. It's a big-time Sun Belt game. NIU and Akron go head-to-head. That's a MAC conference title game from last season. And UC Santa Barbara plays CSU Northridge, a big West Tournament title game from last season as well. So a lot of bigger games going on this week. A lot of fun to watch. Hopefully we get a lot of those games on stream.
Yeah, I think that a lot of these week 1 matchups are going to be very interesting to see and very close contests. I think that I think for me, just kind of as a whole, looking at the ACC, seeing if our analysis of them being one of the weaker conferences is going to be, spot on, or maybe a little bit of us not knowing ball. I think that Clemson Virginia Tech is going to be a massive matchup to kind of see. Again, I think that's a 3-team race, and that's 2 of the 3 teams facing off in week 1, putting the other at a disadvantage early. I think that, again, we harped on it a lot, but out of the Big Ten, Nebraska, Penn State is going to be another absolutely massive one. Purdue, Iowa. I know Iowa hasn't had always the best results, but I think that that's another one that could be interesting to kind of keep eyes on. Indiana versus Michigan State is going to be another massive matchup. And yeah, I'm also going to be interested. I know that Drexel plays in kind of one of the weaker conferences, but them starting off against Northeastern Black, I know that's their B team, but still, I know that they've had some roster changes as well. We'll see how Drexel kind of performs. I know they're another top team in the rankings, but yeah, it's going to be a great week 1. I think there's a lot of really close matchups that we need to keep an eye on, but yeah.
Yeah, I think me as well. And yes, the top 25 already happened. I'll show it up for you real quick. I'll give you about 3 seconds to look at it. There's your rankings here for CCS Season 7. It's top 25 as of right now on Monday, September 8th. But, for me, I mean, again, look at the growth of the league, Somber. I mean, 2 years ago, there was 12 teams. Now there's 178 schools competing in CCS Season 7. The goal is 200 this spring. I tried to get it through this fall. It didn't happen. But, I'm hoping this spring we can finally reach 200 ahead of... And also, I'll just go ahead and say this now because I talked about it a lot already. There will not be a CCS season this summer. It'll just be fall and spring ahead of next year. We're going to give time for changes to go into effect and get things prepared. So there will be no summer season for this coming summer 2026. But it'll still be a fun year. I'm excited to see what changes happen and how the conference tournament change affects the season this year. And I'm excited to see how the league operates and how we move forward.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an exciting one. Non-conference. If regular season is going to go anything like non-conference, we're in store for an absolute treat for season 7. Really excited that I've been able to be a pretty active hand throughout the opening of this season, and I'm really looking forward to just kind of seeing how things unfold, and now seeing the new playoff formats, getting back to another really competitive bracket for a national championship play. It's going to be a fun season.
Yeah, for those of you wanting to know, the map is made. It just hasn't been put on a graphic yet. I'm still waiting for somebody to get that done for us, but this is the current map. It's not on a pretty background, but there's your map with all the logos on it. It's pretty cool. It took a couple days to make, but it looks super cool to me, and it's always kind of fun to sit down and work on for a couple hours a night. And that's there's your finished product.
Beautiful. Love to see it.
It looks pretty good. I mean, 178 schools, a ton of schools, man.
Yeah, it's an absolutely ridiculous amount of schools to try to fit on a map.
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, but again, it gets easier every time I do it because, there's a couple. So there's a Reddit map that Joey Luce, who makes the maps for March Madness and NCAA college basketball, and so I go off of his initial feelings, and then I go off of our past seasons and say, like, for example, okay, well, this season there was no new schools up west. It's still the same, Montana State, Idaho, Oregon, Washington State, Washington, Seattle. So I just voted all those areas as normal because there is no new schools. I don't have to recalculate anything. So it just kind of gets easier as every time I make it, because I don't have to keep adding new schools and keep recalculating new areas. So it's faster every time, which is nice and convenient. And so hopefully as we continue to grow, it makes it a little bit easier and faster for me to get this out. But why is Washington, Alaska? It's because they are the closest school to the county. So, and Alaska's up north, so they're closest to those counties. California's the closest to Hawaii, which is why you see them down in Hawaii. But that's kind of how the map works. But the county is assigned to the school closest to the center, so that's how that's calculated. And I'm sure there's other ways, but I just go off the March Madness guy and how he does it, and so that's how I did it.
Valid. I think that also just put us in Alaska. Yeah, put Ohio State in Alaska instead. Why not? But yeah, from what I recall, I think a lot of people in Washington also, frequently have family in Alaska, so it's pretty like Washington adjacent. So having the Huskies up there makes sense. The big school, kind of from Northwest Washington, being up in the state furthest northwest. So, but hey, I'm taking from the Huskies. I dare you.
I mean, it took a while still to make, which it's just never easy to sit down and color a blank map for a couple hours, but it definitely is time consuming but it's worth it in the end. It always looks cool, and hopefully we can get this graphic done soon, or else I'll just tweak this white image on a blank background just to get the impressions. But it's cool to me, and I think it's a cool touch to the league. And I know a lot of people really enjoyed it in the spring. I didn't make one for the summer, but I know a lot of people really enjoy it, so that's why I sit down and do it every season, because it just always does so well on Twitter, and everybody seems to enjoy it. So it's just something it's fun to do, and again, 178 schools is no joke, and it's always cool to see all these teams that choose to support the league and compete.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to see some in-state competition as well, and seeing who's grabbing what land, and it's a really cool graphic to have for the season. And like I said, I think that people like it enough that it's a worthwhile thing. So we definitely appreciate it.
Yep, it's definitely worth my time. It's fun, but nonetheless, I mean, again, I think it's going to kind of wrap it up here. We're about an hour now in, and again, we live every Monday, all season long, 7 Eastern. Somber and I will be here 7 Eastern every Monday. So hope to see you guys back next week for episode 2. We'll see y'all tomorrow for more CCS action. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see y'all later.